I thought this was just crazy. But there is this new service called Endpoint Arena, and it is a prediction market for FDA outcomes. And it is it's pretty amazing. It basically is like your job is to predict, do FDA clinical trials actually get approved? And it's another example of where things are going. Like, you never would have thought that you could have these markets against it. And then I also think what's happening now is that they're testing different models against the different trials. Mm-hmm. So you're starting to see now, like, not only all this different type of gambling for all practical purposes, but how the AIs actually can be used to predict what human beings are ultimately going to do. And the question ends up being, at some point, are these clinical trials actually going to be analyzed by AI? And then they're the ones actually making the call, right? And if so, it's just a really interesting thing over time of like when the human's actually going to be in the middle. But I just thought it was just so random and so interesting. And I'm curious, like, what other markets can come out. I actually think, for one thing we've talked about in the past, is I think like a prediction market around how different e-com brands are going to fare, like tied to maybe even their ad campaigns, could be like really interesting. Like, just like, I think there's all this whole world here that like hasn't been untapped yet that I think people can figure out.
I don't know. This one, I mean, it's novel. You start to think about the incentive structure, right? Of like, now we're actually playing with human lives, and like, how much of that do you outsource? At what point, like, the AI is going to do it better, but there should be some manual intervention if ultimately we're the ones taking these drugs or ultimately going through these trials. And then the incentives of just the organizations. I think we have to do it. And like, it's going to lead to so much more, but there are those open questions right now of like this gray area, which we've seen in Polymarkets and Kalshi and stuff.
Yes, I did have a conversation. It's kind of a random aside, but I had a conversation with a dentist this weekend. And I was like, I think like
without your phone, you meet such interesting
without
people.
my phone, you meet, yeah. And I was like, I think I think dental industry seems pretty safe from like AI. And he's like, no, unfortunately, this is not the case. I was like, why? What's happening? And he's like, in China now they have it's becoming like pretty normalized for like root canals and like very like high risks, like dental procedures, or like high, like, I think you need to, like, I'm not a dentist, but like you have to have like a ton of like accuracy. It's like, I think they've gotten it down to like, on average, they're within like a millimeter of where you have to be, where the average dentist, he said, was like within 10 millimeters. I'm probably screwing up the math about it, but he said like already now, so dentists are basically all trying to lobby where like they can be the ones that like, you have to be like a licensed dentist to license these tools, as opposed to it being like you go to this like robot dentist. Super random, but that's why no phones are so great. Yes.
You actually have real conversations. All right.